one. This is the Source Seeker Hour. I'm your host, Baruti Carl Alexander. Thank everybody out there in the audience for joining us. We're here on Zoom and on Facebook Live, and we have an important, powerful discussion. Very important, very powerful. Post-COVID teaching battle strategies. And we're going to talk about all the facets of that. But there is also so many things happening in the world, and we would be remiss if we did not talk about that. And we're going to start with our audience introduction, with our guest introduction to the audience. And I want them to share who they are and whatever they would like to share with the audience. We'll start with Sister Kamaria. Thank you for joining us. Share with the audience, please.
Good evening, my people. It is great to be a part of this community of the community, and I'm just happy to be a part of it. I am an educator going on my 8th year in the classroom, and I also have my own small business. And actually, I'm creating a digital calendar for Black-owned small businesses, which should be released right in time for February.
And what's the name of that going to be, if you want to share?
It's just a calendar in celebration of Black History Month, and pre-sale will go January the 10th, and then it will be put up for sale the 31st of January. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate you joining us and getting ready to share about working in the classroom these 8 years. It's been that long. I remember when you first started. Sister Murray, my sister.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
It's a pleasure being here. What am I? Oh my God, choir director, educator, councilwoman. So just blessed to be able to be a part of this great panel to talk about things that we can do to make the world a better place. Thank you.
Peace and power, my sister. Yes. Dr. Echols, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Sabrina Echols Sampson, and I'm a medical doctor in Houston. Actually, I have family medicine practice in Stafford now. This is our first anniversary. We just celebrated our first year. Butterfly Wellness, and we're at 1250 Texas Parkway, Suite A1. And I also work in emergency room, Lifesavers emergency room, where we do take care of patients with COVID. And I'm excited to be here today to give you updated information, whatever information is needed for the people to help them in their health care.
Thank you very much. This is, I believe, your 5th time that you blessed us in the studio and on Zoom, and it's so powerful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. My brother, that 2nd grade seat was not big enough to contain our spirit.
Third grade.
Third grade. I get it wrong every time. Every time. Just tell the audience whatever you would like to tell them.
First of all, let me thank you for the invitation to be a part of the panel today. I truly consider it an honor every time I have a chance to just have a dialogue with you and others, especially around the field of education. As you well know, I just retired this past year after 35 years in education at every level, from the classroom to assistant principal, central office administrator. And in my political life, I serve on the Texas State Board of Education, where I have been reelected six times now. So I've been serving for 16 years, going into my 17th, and I'll conclude with 18 years. I think I'll retire at that time as well. And so that's basically who I am. My name is Lawrence A. Allen Muhammad, And it is indeed an honor and a privilege to be in your presence today. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you. I'm honored also. And blessings to everybody. We have a lot of powerful things to talk about. We do. And we want to start with the subject that's going on in our nation. We want to start with that because it impacts us. I mean, we have never seen that before in history. And Dr. Echols, why don't you start with your perspective of that?
Well, I actually texted Mr. Alexander earlier. I'm sorry, I hear a little echo, a little background noise. I don't know if that's me or not. It sounds good now, but I texted you earlier, and I thought that that because of what happened yesterday, I know we had an agenda, and I know we have, a very important topic to talk about with COVID. I just felt it was, we need to be sensitive to what is happening in our country right now. The threat that is against the Capitol against our democracy. And so I just felt like the panel, we can open it up, have a discussion, reactions. Actually, I was working in an emergency room last night when everything, when we were watching it, one of our staff members was like, "You won't believe this, turn on the TV, turn on your phones, that there is a mob." They said a mob, overtaking the Capitol. And we know now it was a domestic terrorist act against the Congress and senators that were coming together to certify the election of President-elect Biden and Vice President Harris. And so we have never, ever experienced, I've never seen anything like this in my life. It was horrible. I felt that, honestly, I felt that if it would have been any one of us, we all would have been shot down immediately. And I believe that the Lord allowed this so that our eyes could see, and so that the whole entire world could see truly the moral fabric of what is going on in America, the hatred, the racism. And so to see a Confederate flag, in the Capitol of the United States of America, and to see someone hanging a noose in the United States Capitol building, where lawmakers come together for the people, it just seemed like something out of a movie. It was just horrific. And it all points out back to our leadership, the President Donald Trump, igniting these conspiracy theories. I'm not a politician, I'm a medical doctor, but we all had a reaction of anger. Many people called, text, frustration. I can't believe this is being allowed. Why are not the police? Where the National Guard? Where the police right away? Why was it so easy? Why was it so easy for them to get into the Capitol? It was easier for them to get into the Capitol than compared to, I have more security and I only have a small clinic. I have more security in my clinic for you to get. You can't even just walk in my clinic because of COVID. You had to be screened, the door is locked. We gotta talk to you before you come in the door. We gotta take your temperature and all this stuff. You mean to tell me that they could just walk up to the Capitol and walk through the door like that? If it would have been us, we would have been shot down, and you know it. That's what I have to say tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
Hypocrisy in this country.
There's so many questions about it and so many perspectives. And as we see that they are talking about the 25th Amendment, I don't know if it's going to come about, but there's so many perspectives of it. Brother Lawrence, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, sir. I truly want to say that as I began to watch the news feeds on last night, I was in a state of sadness, actually, in a sense that there's always a desire to have that beacon of hope, of excellence, and all of that in the future. But the reality came to light last night, and so I began to feel like I was not equipped educationally, as people began to quote the last time this occurred in the 1800s, and I'm searching in my mind to say I wasn't aware fully of the burning of the Capitol in the 1800s by the British. I don't remember that coming up in my educational sojourn. And so that was something hidden from me in terms of my ability to cope with last evening or to fully understand it, because I don't have a thorough knowledge of this American history, you know, in a sense of where our place is, especially as African Americans. We're normally thrust into the knowledge of what occurred in the I guess in the lighter parts of slavery. So I don't think back to the 1800s and what happened to the Capitol and what are the history making moments. And so I felt then that somebody had not prepared me fully to understand the sojourn of this country, but to enjoy it from a standpoint of things are better today than they were yesterday. And we realized yesterday that they're exactly the same as they were in the 1800s. So I was saddened by our fellow Americans, if you would, taking this particular stance and led by our president, but I wasn't shocked because I always knew that that was an element in our society that would function in this capacity as soon as they got pushed into the light. And so I'm happy that we got a chance to see it, but I want us to really be vigilant in understanding that we have to be intelligent in this hour, and that words from our position tonight can even ignite. And so we want to make sure that what we put out in the airwaves represents the God that we serve. And he wants us to be vigilant. He wants us to be knowledgeable, but he also is the Prince of Peace. And so we want to go away knowing that it's a good day and it's our time to lead. So a great example can be in front of us.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I think those words are so important. I was listening to the Washington, D.C. mayor, and she was watching her words. And Murray, you might have heard it. She was watching her words, but she was speaking strong. Of course, she talked about that she asked the Virginia National Guard to join. She asked the Maryland National Guard. She was speaking very carefully. And we got to be careful, but we got to speak truth to power, but we got to be careful with our words. Sister Kamaria, what is your comment on it?
Well, those who know me know that I don't mince words. And so from my perspective, I saw the news, I saw the reports, I was utterly disgusted by the poor lack of leadership, by these supremacists who felt emboldened to enter into a place that they did not have authority to enter into. Literally, they broke in, literally. And the fact that the policemen did not take it seriously, they were snapping selfies of these clowns.
That's true.
I was utterly disgusted. And I just think that blame needs to go full circle. So yeah, Trump is on that list. The right-wing conspiracist groups, Ken Paxton of Texas. There is a whole laundry list of blame and they need to be brought to justice aggressively. I think that the Attorney General's office needs to pound on this aggressively, because what's going to happen is that they're going to continue these right-wing conspiracies. I'm totally disappointed that Twitter and Facebook did not take action sooner on this ridiculousness. But hopefully more social media platforms will follow suit and shut down this. Yeah, so
I understand.
That's my comment.
There's so many, as I say, perspectives on this. I never thought it would get to this point, but as my brother Lawrence said, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because from what I see, the Capitol Police, they tried, but there were overwhelming odds and they ran them over. Now, why wasn't there more preparation? Was that somewhere by design? I don't know. That's a very good question. Sister Murray, Nick.
Look, of course, last but not least, basically, you know, and I'm not a politician. Politicians get paid. I don't. I'm a public servant. One thing I can say is this, is that we are going to have to learn from this, meaning this is teaching us what not to do. Now, we know what they did was that it was totally wrong. It was, I mean, but this is what I've always said, that because they have not dealt with Trump 4 years ago and his antics, what you do, you embolden a person. If you don't deal with what they're deal with what he's doing. So they never did that. So what do we do moving forward? Moving forward, we're doing what we did the other day, making sure that we had those 2 senators come in from Georgia, pushing in our agenda, if you will. You vote, you vote, you vote. I have been saying that. And I think as well as Mr. Lawrence goes to Windsor Village with me, so he knows as well. Voting is very critical. We've been saying that for years. So you know your vote is important. We know that Trump was no good. We know that some people they were silent about his antics. So now, because it affected them, he put fear in them, now they're going to move. But let me say this, we as African Americans were always moving when they wasn't. So again, we're going to keep going forward. We don't have time to hate. I'm gonna just go say this, and Lawrence knows we teach this at Windsor. I forgive those guys, but they got to suffer the consequences, period.com. I don't want to harbor that. They were wrong. Everybody was wrong. Let me say this and I'm done. No, to me, it was an inside job. They knew what, this is the bottom line. That's why it was an overtaken element. It was an inside job. Call it what it is. Let's not defer from it. And that's what happened. And it's sad. I went to the Capitol, 2 months ago when when the judge, she passed, and I went there, and it's a beautiful, and so when I saw that and I saw the statues, I'm like, these people don't care. So what we need to, this let everybody know, the world knows that America is divided and we got to stop this foolishness. And I'm done.
Yes, ma'am. We can certainly talk about that, and let's continue to interject in our conversations if you want to about what's going on. We are going to talk about the impact of COVID, which is going on at the same time. As all of this is going on, we have COVID going on. And I'm a teacher. It impacts me. We have been impacted at the place where I work. We have had staggered time. We've had quarantined people out, whole districts out. I'm a feeder district school, so we have like 60 districts or 40 districts that come to our school, and we've had whole districts be out because of COVID. So it impacts us. It impacts us greatly, just like what's going on in Washington impacts us. Let's talk about that. How does it impact? Brother Lawrence, what have you heard? I know you're not in the classroom right now, but what have you heard across the board as a state board member?
Well, from the state board, we get our bi-monthly reports in terms of the academic growth of the students in the state of Texas. And what we have come to realize is that on last year, we actually ended school in the month of March. And so there has been a tremendous decline in the educational advancement of especially our first and second graders. And that trying to go into a hybrid model, if you would, you have the option to stay home or go in the classroom, has not rendered the results that we normally would receive in terms of each year having an academic growth of 1 year. So if you can imagine, just about the month of March, a first grader is really getting to the first phase of what's called comprehension, not just letter identification and sounds, but comprehension. And for us in our community, especially what they call the poor communities, you don't have a certified teacher there in the apartment complex that's going to be able to fill in the gaps for you. So if you didn't get that comprehensive skill last year as a first grader, You're not in the classroom this year as a second grader. You return to that classroom as a third year grader next year in what's called an accountability grade level. You will see a number of our schools in our community up for closure because the curve is too great in terms of catching up in a normal scale. So we're in a space now where we have to have a totally different paradigm shift. And if we're going to deal politically, then we got to deal educationally politically, because that's where our children are. It's not always in the White House. Sometimes it's down at HISD. Sometimes it's at Missouri. Sometimes it's going to be at Fort Bend. That's the most powerful judicial body that affects your community. And that's your school board and how we're going to address the academic needs of our students. And then the state board to push the state back on the accountability measures where we understand that we know how to reach our students, but we can't get them. Now they would normally be 2 grades behind. Now they'll be 3 and 4 grades behind by the time they're in the 5th grade. And so that means a lot of identification for special education, a lot of blaming, shaming and blaming our students for not being where they should be. But yet we're in a bad position with that next generation if we don't address it politically as well with our school system. And that's where we speak truth to power.
Okay. How do we specifically, so you're talking about making sure we have representation on the school board, the state board, across the line to impact the curriculum that, and the teachers who teach our kids?
One of the things we have to remove and deal with first is the accountability system. And because it's always had its biases in a sense, but it's the fear factor for educators. If I don't make it to the end of the line, then I'm blamed for not getting there. And so it's called the pace and sequence of your scope and sequence of your lessons. You have 1 day to cover a particular element in the chart. We've got to teach deeper, and we got to get deeper instead of wider. And we can teach our children how to learn and think, but we're so caught up in with how many things we have to teach, we don't get a chance to really teach them how to learn and think, you know? So we're doing rote learning. Get the information you need, you forget it in the summer, start over in the next year and do the best you can. We know these things as educators. We know what works and not working. It's time for us really to tell the truth about what's going on in that classroom. And we got to do it at the governor's level and the state level so we can help our children and not be forced to make cookie cutter individuals coming out. That is the real struggle. The academic piece with the state board in terms of the curriculum, whether we're using Common Core, all those kind of little fake things going on in the world. What are we doing with the standards? We don't need to know all the things that they expect us to learn. We need to know how to learn, how to read, how to comprehend, how to actually function as a literate person in the society. And then we'll branch out in various areas and grow. And we got to stop allowing the state boards to do that, the governor's office to do that, to put us up in this hierarchical system, A, B, C, D, and F, whatever it is, and to blame and shame and blame. We got a real fight on our hand for our children right now. Because once they get into a community where your schools are all labeled Fs, if you're in an F school, you feel like a failure.
Yes,
when they
brother.
start telling you your schools are Fs, you start feeling like I'm going somewhere where I can't learn. You know,
I mean,
and then
you said a lot of deep things there, and it goes back to really teaching is not, you don't learn that in a book. You don't just say, okay, they teaching me how to teach in this book, I follow this procedure. You got to know something about the child and be able to connect with that child. And if you're from a different community, you may not have that ability. Now, I can connect with white students, I can connect with different races of students. Everybody doesn't have that affinity or ability, but we have to make it more connected to our community. That's what I feel you're saying. Let me go to Sister Kamaria. Sister, you heard the brother say a whole lot of things. I know you have a comment, and just share, how are you managing in the classroom also?
Thank you, brother. It is certainly has been a challenge for this school year, teaching in a hybrid environment. As you notated before, having to teach students virtually and in person at the same time. And I have 6 classes with 4th grade. It is certainly has been a challenge this school year. The kids are worn out, they're exhausted, they're having difficulty transitioning to a virtual environment, and vice versa as well. So we do have some students who transition from virtual to in-person at the close of the 6 weeks. And that's also a challenge, a big challenge for the kids. One thing that I could relate to that Lawrence spoke about was the idea of, as teachers, we're given a curriculum to cram in so many TEKs, so many objectives to teach the students.
You're going out a little bit, sister. Okay.
And we get so caught up in how many instructional days we have to cover the content. Okay. There is little time, so caught up in the red tape, the politics of education, and it's a lot. But I love the kids. I do what I can, and to just keep it moving. But it's super tough, and even more compounded in a hybrid school year.
It is a unique thing to have to try to teach virtually, and I taught virtually. I think, you know, I'm just as much an expert virtual teaching as anybody now because it's a brand new thing. What are some of the programs that you deal with, Ms. Kamaria?
Programs as far as?
Virtual teaching programs that you have to use.
Well, currently I work.
Go ahead.
Currently, I work with a charter school, and we provide hybrid instruction, virtual and in-person instruction. But I do have close family members who do exclusive virtual teaching and internationally. So, I mean, you know, every educator's role differs, but for me personally, hybrid, virtual and in person.
Yes, ma'am. Sister Murray, I know when we were teaching together, we learned a lot of programs. How are you adjusting to it now?
I'm at Houston Independent School District, so it's a lot. It's sometimes I forget because I have kids that are in my classroom, and then I have those that are virtual. We use Microsoft Teams a lot. You look Kahoot. We use Google. All of those mediums, and so sometimes you can get lost. One thing that I saw, the discrepancy that I see is that I have issues with kids signing on, and then I have issues with the parents being as active. They need to be a little bit more proactive. So even when I reach out to the parents, I can't get to the parents because they're not answering the phone, or their kids are not signing in. So we have to go the extra mile as a teacher to ensure that we're teaching in both realms, and that's a lot. I have to be reminded a lot of times. Don't forget, Ms. Murray, you got the kids right here that's virtual, because I'm sitting here looking at the kids that are here in front of me, and then I have to be careful because of COVID, because I want to make sure that, I don't get COVID. So it's a challenge, but, it's something we have to do.
What do you say about Brother Allen saying that, hey, our advancement is going down in this time because of we're not in person? I don't want to speak for you, but I believe that's what you were saying. We're not in person, so the growth of the kids, we're losing it. And
the growth, yeah.
How are we going to get that back, and how are we going to address some of those nuances that are in the educational system that we are not close to getting to?
Well, unfortunately, the gap is widening. I agree, but then I have to also go that there are some students that are learning virtually. They are doing it hybrid, but it's because they have strong parental involvement. But when you have parents that are working and trying to make a difference, and they're dealing with COVID and they're dealing with aging parents, all of those variables tend to weigh, and it deters the student. So because of COVID, I'm just going to be real. COVID has made a very detrimental impact on our students, and it's hard. And we're trying as educators, Mr. Lawrence can agree, as those that on the board, they're trying to find a way, but the way is hard because of COVID. At the end of the day, it's just COVID has made such an impact. You have kids. I was at a school, not at HISD, when I was at another school. One of my parents' husband had COVID. So that meant I had to be out. But I didn't get it, praise God. I went and got tested, but it still impacted me. We cannot, we can sit here and talk about all these different discrepancies with the scores and everything. Yes, COVID is the culprit, period.com.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Echols, share, I know you have had people that said, I don't want to take this vaccine. And you hear so many people talk about the concerns going through working in a COVID environment or possible COVID environment. What can you share about that vaccine, and where do you stand on us having to be required to take it as teachers or educators?
Talk, Dr. Sampson.
I want to add to what Ms. Murray was just talking about affecting I've seen that, for example, if I place a mother and a father in quarantine, then the children have to come in quarantine. So many times the children may not have COVID. They may be in preschool, or they may be in grade school or high school, and they get tested, they're negative. But if the parents are positive, or even one of the parents, then they have to all go into quarantine. Now that is affecting their education. And so many times, and it's a cycle that's going on. They come out of quarantine, they get another exposure, they go back in quarantine. They come out, they go back. And I do really see the parents are doing everything. Some of the parents are like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't afford this. I can't stay out of work again. I'm in quarantine, and my son, he wants to go to he's in high school, he plays sports, he wants to, go in the classroom. And it's just a cycle. And what we're seeing with the vaccines that are out, I have been studying the vaccines, the research on the vaccines. We have two types of vaccines. Two companies, pharmaceutical companies, Pfizer and BioNTech. The BioNTech is a company in Germany, and Pfizer is here, the pharmaceutical company here in the United States. So we have partnership outside of the United States that is working on these vaccines. This is a messenger RNA vaccine. This is the very first time we've ever had this type of vaccine. We've never, ever in the history had a messenger RNA vaccine. Then you have Moderna, which is another pharmaceutical company that was FDA emergency use. And what you have to understand, there is no FDA approval for the treatment of COVID. And so when you have to understand the terminology, FDA approved versus emergency use. FDA approved versus emergency use. So these vaccines are FDA emergency use. So every medicine, even the medicine that we give to treat COVID patients, we give steroids in the hospital, we give remdesivir, we give antibodies, all those are FDA emergency use. And so with that being said, there's no 100% treatment that will cure COVID-19. And so the vaccines is probably one of the most helpful that we have at the time to help reduce the spread, to help reduce the spread.
Can I ask this?
Uh-huh.
Have you, I heard a report, now I want to find out if there's any credibility that somebody that took the vaccine passed. Have you heard that?
I have not heard that.
Okay, well, I am not going to repeat
I've
it.
heard about in Europe when they remember Pfizer and they had the vaccines first, and I heard about the allergic reaction to the vaccine for those who have allergies to vaccines or severe allergies that they carry EpiPens around, and then we had people here allergic reactions and also Bell's palsy, but I haven't heard of any fatalities
Okay,
from the vaccines.
well, that's reassuring.
Nurses, yeah. The most common side effect is just like a soreness from your arm, just like the tetanus shot. I've done the research about it, and basically this virus vaccine, they don't introduce the vaccine in your body. So there's a lot of conspiracies and myths about that. And I've been talking to many African Americans about getting the vaccine that have high underlying conditions, high risk underlying conditions such as cancer, diabetes, obesity, and asthma. African Americans are 3 times as likely to die from COVID than other races. So we're 3 times as likely to die. And so you have to look at the risk factors. And if you look at the risk factors, some of the number 1 people that end up on the ventilator are obese patients that have diabetes and hypertension. So obesity, morbid obesity, is a huge problem. And so we know without a shadow of a doubt that if anybody should get the vaccines, other than, the healthcare workers, of course, and those that are on that front line, the people that have the most severe conditions should get the vaccine. Now, in the study, the only issue I had about the study was that there were not enough people. There are not enough people. I have been trained to read research studies. I've been a doctor for over 20 years. And any doctor that has been trained to read research studies will know that that's not enough people that they tested. And so when they say, oh,
how many people was that? I thought it was 30,000.
That's not a lot of people.
Okay.
So when you think about the United States of America, and we have over 300 million people, 30,000 people, that means that in Moderna, 15,000 received the vaccine, and 15,000 was the placebo. That's called a randomized control study. Okay. And so that's like, if you read and research, you have heart studies and cancer studies with 400,000 people, breast cancer studies with over 1 million people. That's not a lot of people. So you're really just getting the surface, just a little taste of really of the people that receive the vaccine. So out of the people that actually received the vaccine, very, very few people actually came down with COVID.
Okay.
So that was really significant. And that's how they came up with is 90% effective if you get it the second time. The way the vaccine works really quickly is that when they inject the vaccine in your cell, goes into your muscle cell, the messenger RNA tells your muscle cell to make the protein, the viral protein, that little spike protein that's on the outside. Well, the messenger RNA vaccine tells your muscle cell make that spike protein. And then once it makes the spike protein, then it elicits an immune response from your body. You make antibodies that will recognize it. Okay. So in the future, if you ever come in contact with that virus, your body will recognize it and attack it. It will ignite the T cell, your immune system, the B cell. These are immune systems that have memory. And what I tell people is that we don't know what we don't know. We don't know how long this vaccine is going to last. It could be like the flu vaccine, where people have to get the flu vaccine every year, because you have to study the behavior of a virus. The virus mutates. And so that's what they do. Viruses love to mutate. The HIV virus, it mutated. That's why some people are resistant to certain medications. Virus mutates, okay? And so this virus has already mutated. And so now the researchers are going back and saying, okay, this vaccine that we have is actually have antibodies to the outside, that protein, those spikes, okay? But the virus is mutating on the inside. It's almost just like, you see me with my purple scrub on. And so it's going to recognize every time they see that purple scrub. But the virus is mutating inside of my lungs. So even if you get a new strain, the researchers are saying the vaccine should still recognize it.
Let me ask this, and I want to bring Sister Kamaria in on this. Hey, until we as teachers get the vaccine, should not we have gotten a stipend, a stimulus? Because we're at risk also, and we are very important to the economy. What you feel about? I know, I believe you're gonna say we should have got a stimulus, Kamaria.
Oh, I'm never ever opposed to a stipend or
but more specifically, if they are applied, and we're supposed to be so important to the economy, we should have received. What I'm getting at is we deserve more respect in our industry also. And just like first responders, just like the legislature, if we're that important, we should be treated that important. Kamaria.
I completely agree. But I also feel like, and this may sound strange, but I feel that the instructional aides, the custodial staff, the cafeteria workers, also, and the nurse on staff at my campus too. They are some of our silent heroes as well in the educational system, and they completely deserve to be compensated better for the service that they offer to the community. So if I were blessed enough one day to be on a school board, I would definitely advocate for those silent heroes as well, who do not get
good hand
as well. As far as additional pay to the teachers, I think it would be a great gesture for sure. I know that the teachers who got a retention bonus at my charter school for Christmas. So those who had been with the campus for over a year were given a retention bonus, but I wouldn't be opposed to an additional bonus for the sacrifices that as teachers we're having to make during this unprecedented, looking like a double year for COVID-19.
Yes, ma'am. Brother Lawrence.
Yes, sir.
Hey, you look at the budget, you look at the priorities that they make decisions on as far as how allocating resources. What's the discussion on that, and how is COVID impacting that?
Oh, well, let me start with this. Certainly, I'm in favor of the level of compensation for every employee in a school district to come to a level where there's a living wage for those at the bottom and the most comparable wage for those who are sacrificing and doing a great job in the sense of educating our children. Now that we're looking at actually a budget shortfall, many of our districts that receive their fundings based on ADA, that's average daily attendance, there are a number of students missing in the system. And that may be because they just have a lack of internet connection and what have you. And so our funds per district are actually going down for the upcoming school year. And so we will have a reduction in our staffs going into next year because we run our budgets at 60% just on personnel. We spend over 60% on the budget just meeting the current payroll. And all the other things have to come into play after that in terms of upkeep, in terms of how we deal with the infrastructure of our school systems and our buses and buying new things and things of that nature. So we are running a very lean budget as it is. Now, I just wanted to say that. So that means we have to advocate at the higher level for more resources coming into the system so that teachers and those who support that system are appropriately compensated. In this particular time, I wanted to simply say we have to put on a new hat. We're not just teachers, we're not just doctors, we're at war. And we're at war right now. And we're called into a war, and this is to survive this pandemic and to thrive by making sure that our next generation is prepared to go forward even after we leave this earth. And so we have to put our war cap on right now, not just our personal desire to be compensated. That means we put ourselves in harm's way, because we're talking about transferring intellectual capital so that the generations behind us can succeed. We can't sit on the battleground looking for dollars and coins and nickels. No, we got to fight this war. We see our sister in the medical field. She doesn't have an option. She's in the war. She's not in her normal state of mind and doing her duty. She's fighting for life so that we can continue to go forward. And educators have to do the same thing. Nobody wants to die, but I guarantee you some folks will. And that's what war will bring about. And so we have to just realize that we're going to do all we can. We're all going to be prayed up, stayed up, and all that. But we're going to have to realize, that our deepest desire is to make sure the next generation is equipped to go forward. And
you said something a while back, and I sat down and wrote a proposal one time where I talk about we probably need to go to neighborhood schooling. You said we may not have a certified teacher in every apartment complex, but it may need to go to that aspect for us to have a more conducive education that can really help the students where they are. And I think that's the model that we need to go to. What you think about that?
If we had a neighborhood, we probably could go to that. And what I'm trying to say to you, that a neighborhood consists of all the amenities that are needed for life to thrive. All of our neighborhoods are described as food deserts. All of our neighborhoods are described as economically disadvantaged. All of our neighborhoods are found as chemically induced for cancer and all of these other things that affect us. So just placing a school in a particular area and sending the students to just that campus, the natural resources around us will not allow us to thrive. That's why they went to magnet programs and pulling and grouping in the past. You have to have all of that. Now you're thinking about when we were in school, elementary school in the 70s, where your teacher lived down the street. So the economics of your community was higher. It was much higher. Children weren't struggling to get a calculator. You just went home and asked for one, and your parents got it for you. So technology is driving us into another place of economic needs. It's not about economic needs. It's about dispersing the needs to that community so that wherever you are, you learn. If you decide to go to another community, you learn. But if you decide to stay in your community, you learn. So that's that equity factor, that I can't go somewhere and get more resources, but I can go somewhere and be in a different environment. But if I stay home, I have all the resources I need in order to succeed. Teachers don't live in the community anymore because they redline certain communities for housing patterns. So as soon as you get your teacher's job, for most of us as African Americans, you're making $50,000, $55,000, $60,000. You're the highest paid person in your family. You move out to where you can buy a $200,000, $250,000 home because that's what you've always wanted. It's not in Sunnyside. It's not in South Park. It's not in, the areas where we grew up anymore. It's too expensive to live in Third Ward, and all these kinds of things. So you got to see that that real war that's going on. Any educated African American is forced out of the community, forced out through housing patterns. And so you can't have a neighborhood school unless you have real intellectual capital in the neighborhood.
So
it's not just
I guess what I would get at then is we gotta build more community within our neighborhood. For
It's got to be a community, and that's housing patterns. That's what people don't have to move so far away. Just imagine your PTA on a campus. If you don't lose your intellectual capital, your top parents are there in your school. But if not, the parents are in another school because they've shifted their location, and they're going to follow the educational process for their particular child. So in order to have neighborhood schools, you got to have all the resources that build a neighborhood. And so people are not exiting the community to get things that they don't have. Not just the educational component, housing, grocery stores, entertainment, and things of that. We only went to the Majestic OST to go to a movie.
Yes.
And we rode the bus down there. So we had what you call neighborhood schools and had all the amenities of life, but they're gone. And so we just can't put a school there and say we got a neighborhood school. You need that intellect. We need Doc there. We need Doc to live next door. I need Doc to be my neighbor. And then I need you to be my neighbor. And if I got you as my neighbor, my child learns from Doc just by spending time. She'll come home giving me some lessons that I didn't know because she got a chance to just play at Doc's house.
Yes.
And
now
that's the neighborhood school.
That's one of the big things that we had. And it goes back to that, what you're talking about, us as neighborhood building our community. There was my father, there was your father, there was the Malloys, there was the Armstrong, and we had community, and that helped us to be where we are today. And yes, we have to have more people building those type of circles, and within that type of circle, then you can have an educational process. My father or your father, they could have set up a neighborhood school and brought all of us in if that's what they wanted to do. I'm saying maybe we need to go in that direction in these days.
I'm only saying to you, Brother Baruchi, that we have to build neighborhoods before we think we can put a building and call it a school in the middle of it.
I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you on that, with the ideal and the understanding once we build that neighborhood, which may take quite a while. We're talking about generations from now. But then when you have that, then you build those amenities right there with it. So I'm on the same page as you on that. Sister Murray, yes, powerful conversation we're having. What is your reflection of it? How can we improve the school environment overall in this post-COVID situation that is coming? Cut your mic on.
Yeah, you know what? That is, COVID is new. So everything we're doing is trial and error, is data. We're collecting data. So what we're doing, we have to go with the data that we're collecting that happened in March of 2020 and try to build forth from that. I don't have the answers, and I'm not going to even portray that I do. But what I can do is, as a teacher, a special ed teacher particularly, just do what I can do with what I can do. I can go the extra mile with those parents who are having difficulty and make sure, I'm on board. I make sure that I'm presenting quality material and education via virtual, and understand their plight. One thing that my principal says, and I think it's 2 words to use: you need to be flexible and patient. Flexible and patient. We have to be flexible and patient in this COVID situation, and we cannot act like that it's not impacting us. And Mr. Lawrence, Dr. Lawrence, you can attest with me. What we're doing is data. This is new to all of us. Even Dr. Sampson is getting data, and we're trying to make decisions based on that data, and that's all we can do.
I want to interject this. Yeah, we have data, but we got to have a balance between data and human understanding and interaction. I've been in a situation where a person goes by the book, but there are nuances that are beyond the book, especially in the classroom, I mean, to be able to have empathy and understanding with that child, that takes a certain experience, understanding, and you have something in common that you can understand with that child. I was a very shy and introverted young man, and somebody that see me, they would call me autistic. My high school wanted to put me in special ed. Yes, I was the last one that did not have to go to summer school. However, some people can attest to this. I can be very smart when I want to be. However, had they had their perception based upon data, I would have been shuffled in a different direction. So we can't just go with data. We have to go with a deeper understanding. And that's where I go back to that community situation of what is the optimum, in my opinion, because we have to bring in that human element that can make that impact beyond the data.
And that's why that's why I said patience and flexibility. Patience is that human element. Patience, being patient, understanding, all of that falls under patience and being flexible in the whole scope of it. And
if I can interject,
I
think what Brother Lawrence was talking about earlier is there's a battle going on because the powers that be, they want to only depend upon data.
True.
They want to depend upon data because that's the easier thing. They don't have to deal with the real situations. Because if you got data says this, this, and this, well, that's what it is. No, that's not necessarily what it is. Brother Lawrence, that's not necessarily what it is. So we got to find a way to bring out that extra element that child who may have circumstances that clouds his ability to shine, and bring out that ability to shine, because if we regulate them to data, they may be doomed. I could have been doomed if I was regulated to data.
Well, I'm just talking about in regards to COVID and what's going on now. That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm not saying that. And so what I'm saying is that, me and you used to work together. So yes, data is important, but you got to also build a relationship. You got to build those other factors. I'm talking about in the midst of COVID, and you're saying how to have such a thriving educational element. I'm saying in the midst of COVID and with parents and what they're going through and all of this and this new thing, you're going to have to use a little bit of data. But yes, you got to use some compassion. It's what Mr. Lawrence said. We are at war.
I understand that. All I was saying, even in the midst of a crisis like we have, if we had that community would band together and deal with that also. Sister Kamaria, you have wanted to share in this conversation. I got a little excited, y'all. But,
we know you.
I have an affinity for that child that somebody says he's done. He can't make it. I have an affinity because I was that child who they talked about. I was that child. Don't get me started here. I'm sorry. Sister Kamaria.
Thank you. The kids mean so much to me, and you asked, brother, how to improve the overall educational environment during these unprecedented times. And yes, I agree with Mrs. Murray. I do believe it takes a relationship with that child and identifying their individual needs and working towards a resolution that can benefit that child and set them up for success. I also do agree that data does play a role in it. And it does serve its role and its purpose, but at the same time, I do feel like there's an oversaturation of the different ways we achieve that data, and that needs to be addressed, and more grace needs to be extended not only to the kids, but to the teachers as well.
Absolutely, about the teacher.
Yeah. One thing that a counselor did on campus that I just thought was a really sweet gesture to help with the overall environment is that she basically pulled the teachers away for little 10-minute increments, and we were able to spend some time in her office, and there was like jazz music playing, low lighting, little snacks available, and basically she wrote us a little note saying, we appreciate you all. We wanted to just give you 10 minutes away from the kids. And, you know, I think those gestures are also super important, because as teachers, we get so stressed. And I don't know when Miss Mackey is going to come down with the 10-minute date again, but I told her to sign me up as soon as she does it again.
Yes, ma'am. And there's many ways, you know, some teachers may not like the 10 minutes. You like the 10 minutes. So there's a whole lot of, and an administrator, a counselor has to be open to all those approaches. Some people just, you know, leave me a note and give me a note. You know, you have people like that also. So you have to be well diversified when you're working with a large group of people and with different personalities and so forth. And when I'm talking about data versus balance, you bringing in all of the different personalities in different communities also. Some people, you know, in the past, they would go on data that black people couldn't do such a thing and so forth, and base certain things upon that. And there's still battles within the curriculum to change all of those particular things across the board. We are getting close to the end of our show on the Sourceseeker Hour. This is our episode number 71. Been a very impactful show. We've talked about a lot. However, we're going to go slightly over time, and I just want to tell everybody, but we want to start doing our ending comments. Take as long as you would like, Sister Kamaria, and if you want to, I'll come back to you, but take as long as you want and share your final statement with the audience, as well as how they can reach you.
Oh, this conversation could go on for ages, for chapters, for months. So I'm certainly not going to take too much longer on the board. But I just wanted to say thank you to you all for engaging in that amazing conversation this evening. We got a chance to discuss the political climate. We got a chance to discuss the health impacts of these past years. And then we're also discussing the future, the current stance of education and the future where it can go. And I just think that's so valuable. And I hope I get invited to the next Sourceseeker topic in the next coming months. If anyone would like to reach me directly, I actually go by Kamaria Speaks, and SPEAKS, and that is available on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you.
Powerful, powerful. Dr. Sabrina Echols.
Yes, I wanted to add before we leave, because we had a few questions in the chat room, and maybe this will help for those that are out there about the vaccine. That so far what I'm getting back from many of my colleagues and those that have already taken the vaccine, they've been feeling great. They haven't really had any reactions. I feel that it's going to be really good for us in our community. I have been advocating the vaccine for African Americans. I know about the mistrust. We got a question about that. I'm not judgmental, though. If there's anyone that refuses even the flu vaccine, there are many patients that say, I'm not taking it. I just explain to them the importance, et cetera. I think the teachers do deserve more money. They do deserve, because of I hope more teachers will take the vaccine. And one of the reasons why I would educate the teachers on, because there were really no children in the study. Very few children were in the study. So one vaccine, I think Pfizer, you had to be 16 and up to get the vaccine, and the other one you have to be 18 and up. Moderna, you have to be 18 and up. And so if you're dealing with school-age children, there is a highly likely that they could be asymptomatic. And what we're seeing in the community is that for every holiday, you're teaching these kids every single day. Then they go home with their parents, and they're gathering. They are gathering, regardless of what we say. They're gathering they gathered for Christmas. They gathered for Thanksgiving. They gathered for New Year's. Then we see a surge about we're still treating people that gathered for Christmas now. We see a 2 to 3 week surge after every holiday. And so these young people could be asymptomatic, and they can infect the teachers and administrators, and it can be detrimental. We've already seen many how this has affected teachers and teachers.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, we've heard stories of teachers dying of COVID-19. And so I believe that we need more education. Maybe we could have school nurses educating about the science part of it and how it works, this vaccine, and advocating especially for those teachers on the front line that have those underlying conditions such as diabetes, asthma, cancer, things like that. I think we don't pay enough attention to our teachers. Because you got to think about it. The children are not in the study, and the American Pediatric Association, they're now demanding these pharmaceutical companies to include the children, test the children, because think about it. We give 1-year-olds flu shots. And that's a different type of virus. It's a kill virus. Well, we actually inject, the virus is dead, but we inject it into these kids that are 1 year old. And so if you can study the flu virus on children, why can't you study the coronavirus, which is a novel virus? This is a new virus. The coronavirus family is not new to us, but this is a novel virus that's new, coming from coronavirus. And so if you could study all these other viruses, hepatitis, HIV in children, why not the coronavirus? So now that's why it's such a big risk for the children, because they're not even included in these studies. They're not even authorized to get it unless they're 16 years old or 18 years old. What about the little kids? We do have kids.
That is definitely not reassuring that it has not been really covered. Now, I have not heard reports that it's been widespread as far as kids catching it. However, I do know I'm not going to name my school, we've had districts of students and staff that have had it. How can you be reached, Dr. Echols?
I can be reached at drsabrinabutterfly.com. You can reach me at 281-969, also 5601, 281-969, 5601.
Blessings, thank you. Thank you. As always, super powerful, super powerful.
Yes, yeah.
Brother Lawrence, if you could hold on a second, I know I want to just give us a chance to finish that little discussion a little bit as we go out. Sister Murray, share, to make your final statement and share how you can be reached. She can be reached everywhere, people.
Look, let me tell you what I tell my students. Google me, baby. Google me.
Yeah.
But anyway, look, I'm with some powerhouses. I'm grateful for Dr. Lawrence, Miss Price, and Dr. Sampson. I love learning about something that's going to help us. And look, Mr. Alexander, you've always been a friend to me. Let me thank you. Even at Harris County Department of Ed, you are fabulous, and let me thank you. I don't have anything to say. You can check me out on the City of Our Colony website. You can even go to my own website. It's votearnettamurray.com. You can go to Houston website. You can see me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Holla at your girl. Love you.
Peace and power, peace and power. My brother Lawrence, I got this last statement. I was that young man. You know it. I was that young man that they talked about the data with. They said I was not going to make it. They said maybe, you know, he has some kind of defect. Maybe he has autism. I was the last one. You know that I had all those issues. What about that student? And I know the situation we're in now is difficult, but we got to have some human understanding to be able to make it. And what you have to say about that?
Thank you, Brother Barute, for putting me on the spot there with that particular comment. And I would be at a disadvantage if I hadn't known you as long as I have. I've known you for 50 years.
Yes, sir.
I don't really subscribe to the fact that you were actually that student. I saw you as a genius, and I saw you as an extremely bright student.
But that's the point.
You didn't let me finish.
Okay, sir.
Let me
Okay.
finish. Thank you. I know it's your show. I want to go through. But what I wanted to say is that every student needs supports. It's not about whether a student is on one end of the spectrum, the GT spectrum, or the special education spectrum. Every student needs supports, and they need those supports in different ways. And in order to get those supports, they normally come through human interaction by somebody who can identify what might be effective in that particular child's life. And so we normally will go back in our studies and say, I want to thank my teacher, Miss Murray, when I was in the such and such grade. She made the difference in my life, and things turned for me when she did thus and such for me. Somebody did that for you. Even if the data was saying you were not going to succeed, somebody touched you in a way, your father, a teacher, a coach, or somebody, and you said, no, I'm going to project into another direction. A man now who has written several books, a man now who understands who's raised his family, a man who's economically stable. So the data doesn't drive your outcome. The data just predicts your current position. Okay. And
Minister.
So you understand that. Now I want to get to my question.
Okay. Lawrence been speaking the truth all evening.
Minister, dog. Minister, Mr. Lawrence.
I wanted to simply say before we go that I enjoyed so much being on this panel with these ladies, because I truly believe that the key to our rise as a people is found in the Black woman. And the excellence that's been demonstrated here tonight shows you that she is the hidden factor in this war. And so we realize that she is in all the positions that will elevate us to a new status in life. And so
I just want to say the ones I know are not hidden, they very loud.
Well, not hidden in that sense. I'm just saying intellectual capital is hidden in the Black woman. There's almost been a desecration of the Black man. And so the Black woman is in the spaces now, the boardrooms. She's the doctor, she's the educator, she's the lawyer, she's the vice president, if you would. And so what you saw yesterday had nothing to do with Republicans or Democrats. It had nothing to do with the transference of power from one political party to another. It had all to do with the fear of a Black woman becoming the president of this particular country. And so we really have to understand why we need to be at our very best every day. Every day we need to be
I feel that, Lawrence. Come on, I feel that.
Because we have to represent our sister as she represents us. Because you don't realize when a person says this is our country, and as a Black woman, one banana peel away from being the president, then we have to be very, very vigilant and excellent. They call it Black excellence, if you would. Then we have to realize that everything we do now will reflect the quality of our family. And our family is beyond the household now. It's all the way to the White House. And so I'm employing all of our children. When you're in school, think about what you're doing. Give it your best every day. I'm employing all of our teachers. Give it your best every day, because you're a reflection now of this nation. We've never reflected this nation. Presidents are bought and paid for, not vice presidents.
Yes.
I hope you understand what I just said to you. Presidents are bought and paid for, not vice presidents. So
Yes,
when you
sir.
have a
I
boss, the
got what
vice
you're saying.
president, you got to fear the vice president. That's
Yeah.
all I want to say. And you can reach me at lallen1161@icloud.com, or you can Google me, and I guarantee you'll find Lawrence A. Allen Jr. and he'll be on the.
Thank you, my brother. Can you all imagine me and him as third graders having an argument in our classroom? I won a few too. He's pretty good though, but I won a few arguments also. This is the Sourceseeker Hour. This is our 71st episode. Coming up in February, we talk about Black love. Why is it so hard? It's February 4th. So we have a lot of great episodes coming up. Next week, Bishop George will be here with Where's My Stimulus? And we're going to reflect upon what happened yesterday on that particular show. We have, look at our schedule, Sourceseeker Hour on Facebook and many other places. I'm your host, Baruti Carl Alexander, the Sourceseeker. I thank my guest, powerful brother Lawrence Allen, powerful sister Arnetta Murray, and the super powerful Kamaria. Dr. Sabrina Echols had to leave. This is the Sourceseeker Hour. We thank everybody for joining us. This upload will be coming very soon online. I hope you enjoyed the live broadcast. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Thank you
Thank
also
you.
so much.
Good night.
I got to go ahead and end the meeting. We're still live on Facebook. So please contact me any way you want to. If you have a comment, I'll probably be contacting you about the show. Thank you all very much. Brother Lawrence, appreciate you.